My name is Olivia. I'm 28 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I almost died. I'd been having stomach pain for days. Thought it was just stress or bad food, but one night the pain became unbearable. I couldn't stand, couldn't breathe. My roommate found me on the bathroom floor and called 911. By the time the ambulance got me to the hospital, my appendix had ruptured. I had sepsis, infection spreading through my bloodstream, shutting down my organs. The ER doctor told my family I needed emergency surgery immediately, and there was a chance I wouldn't make it. My mother later told me she fell apart in that waiting room. My sister held her while she sobbed. My aunt called other family members, telling them to come say goodbye just in case. And somewhere in the middle of that grief, in the middle of that fear, someone said, "What's going to happen to her stuff?" I wasn't there. I was on an operating table, being cut open by surgeons, trying to save my life, but according to the security footage and the nurse who witnessed it, my family spent the time I was dying discussing my belongings. Let me back up so you understand who I am and why this hurts so much. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. My parents divorced when I was 12, and my mom raised us alone. She worked 2 jobs. We didn't have much, but we were close, or I thought we were. My sister, Emma, is 25. She's always been the baby, the one who got away with everything. My brother lives across the country. We're not close, but Emma and I were. We talked every day, shared clothes, borrowed each other's things. I thought we were best friends. I've always been responsible, the one who takes care of everyone. I worked through college, got a good job as a financial analyst, bought my own apartment at 26. I was proud of myself, proud of what I'd built, and part of what I'd built was a jewelry collection. Nothing crazy, expensive, but meaningful. My grandmother's engagement ring, a necklace my dad gave me before he died, a bracelet I bought myself when I got my first promotion, things that mattered, things I told my family were important to me. And when I got rushed into emergency surgery, when the doctors said I might not survive, my family's first thought wasn't "let's pray," it was "let's take her jewelry before someone else does." Here's what I didn't know. While I was in surgery, my mom turned to Emma and said we should go to her apartment and get her valuables before anything happens. My aunt said, "That's smart. What if something gets stolen or lost?" Emma hesitated for a second, then said she gave me a spare key for emergencies. So they left the hospital, got in my mom's car, drove 15 minutes to my apartment, let themselves in, went into my bedroom, opened my jewelry box, and took everything: my grandmother's ring, my dad's necklace, the bracelet, the earrings I'd inherited from my aunt on my father's side, everything. They put it all in a tote bag, drove back to the hospital, and sat in the waiting room while I was still in surgery, and started dividing it. My mom said I should get the engagement ring. It was my mother's, Emma said, but she gave it to Olivia. My aunt said we can decide later. Let's just make sure it's safe. They laid everything out on the table in the waiting room, a public space where nurses and other families walked by, and they went through my jewelry piece by piece, talking about who would get what if I died. And I didn't die, but I came close. Here's what happened on that operating table while my family was picking through my belongings. My heart stopped. The infection had spread faster than the doctors anticipated. My blood pressure dropped. My heart went into arrhythmia, and then it stopped beating. I was clinically dead for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. No heartbeat, no pulse, no brain activity. The surgeons performed CPR, shocked me with the defibrillator twice, pumped me full of epinephrine, and on the 3rd shock, my heart started again. I didn't know any of this until days later, when I was stable enough to hear it. But in those 4 minutes, while the doctors were trying to bring me back, my family was downstairs arguing over a bracelet I bought myself. The nurse who told me what happened, Kelly, was the one who saw them. She'd gone to the waiting room to update my family on my condition, and when she walked in, she saw my jewelry spread across the table, my mom holding the engagement ring, Emma looking at a necklace. She froze, not sure what she was seeing, and my aunt looked up and said, "Oh, we're just keeping her things safe in case something happens," Kelly told me. Later, she didn't know what to say. She gave them the update that I was critical, that the surgery was complicated, that they were doing everything they could, and the whole time she was thinking about the jewelry on that table. When she left, she went straight to her supervisor and said, "I think the patient's family is stealing from her while she's in surgery." They reviewed the security footage And sure enough, there it was, my family leaving the hospital during my surgery, returning with a bag going through my things in a public waiting room. I didn't find out until 3 days. After I woke up, Kelly told me, gently, carefully, and I didn't believe her at first. I said there must be some mistake, my family wouldn't do that, and she said I have the footage if you want to see it. I did. I watched it on her tablet in my hospital room, still hooked up to IVs, still recovering from the surgery that almost killed me, and I saw my mother, my sister, my aunt, walking out of the hospital, getting into a car, and I knew where they were going. I saw them come back 30 minutes later, my mom carrying a tote bag. I saw them sit in the waiting room, and I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see them pulling jewelry out, piece by piece, holding things up to the light, examining them. My mom slipped the engagement ring onto her own finger to see if it fit. Emma put a necklace around her neck, looked at herself in her phone camera. My aunt was making a list on her phone, cataloging everything. I watched the timestamp on the video, 9:40, 2 p.m., the exact time I was on the operating table, the exact time my heart stopped. I watched my family divide my life up like I was already gone, and I felt something inside me break. That wasn't grief, it was rage. When Kelly left, I called my mom. She answered on the first ring. Baby, how are you feeling? Do you need anything? I said, I need my jewelry. Back there was a pause. What? Jewelry, she said, playing dumb. I said, the jewelry you took from my apartment while I was in surgery, the jewelry you brought to the hospital and divided up in the waiting room, the jewelry I have on video. She went silent, then she started crying. Olivia, you don't understand. We were just trying to protect it. We thought you weren't going to make it. We didn't want anything to happen to your things, I said. So you stole from me, she said. We didn't steal. We were keeping it safe. I said, you went through my things without asking. You took my grandmother's ring, my dad's necklace, everything that mattered to me, and you started deciding who would get what. Before I was even dead, she was crying harder. We were scared. We weren't thinking clearly. I said, you were thinking clearly enough to drive to my apartment, unlock the door, go through my bedroom, and bring everything back. You were thinking clearly enough to argue about who gets the engagement ring while I was dying on a table 3 floors above you. She didn't answer, and I said, I want everything back today or I'm filing a police report. She said, you wouldn't do that. I'm your mother, I said. Then act like it. Bring my jewelry back now. I hung up. 2 hours later, my mom and Emma showed up at my hospital room with the tote bag. My mom's eyes were red. Emma wouldn't look at me. They set the bag on the table next to my bed, and my mom said, it's all here. I went through it piece by piece in front of them. The engagement ring, the necklace, the bracelet, the earrings, everything. I said, and you thought I was going to die. So you just helped yourselves. My mom said we were going to give it back, Olivia. We just wanted to keep it safe. I held up my phone showing the security footage and said, you put the ring on your finger, Mom. You modeled the necklace. Emma, you weren't keeping it safe. You were shopping my things like I was already in the ground. Emma finally spoke, her voice shaking. We thought you were gone, Livy. The doctors said you might not make it. What were we supposed to do? I said, grieve, maybe pray, sit in that waiting room and hope I survived, not go through my apartment like vultures. She started crying, and I said, get out, both of you. I don't want to see you right now. My mom said, please don't do this. We made a mistake. I said, a mistake is forgetting to call a mistake, is saying the wrong thing. This was a choice you chose to steal from me while I was dying. Now get out. They left, and I sat there alone in my hospital room staring at my jewelry, and I realized I didn't want it anymore. Every piece was tainted now. Every time I looked at my grandmother's ring, I would remember my mom trying it on. Every time I wore my dad's necklace, I would see Emma holding it up in that waiting room. These things that were supposed to mean love and memory now just meant betrayal. I stayed in the hospital for another week, and my family tried to visit every day. I refused to see them. My mom sent flowers. I had the nurses take them away. Emma texted me paragraphs apologizing. I didn't respond. My aunt called and said I was being too harsh, that they were just scared that I needed to forgive them. I blocked her number. The only person I let visit was my best friend, Rachel. She was the one who sat with me while I cried, who listened when I said I don't know if I can forgive this, who didn't tell me I was overreacting. Rachel was there when the hospital social worker came to talk to me about what happened. She asked if I wanted to file a report. I said I don't know what good it would do. They technically had a key they didn't break in, she said, but they took your belongings without permission while you were incapacitated. That's theft. Regardless of their intentions, I thought about it and I said I don't want them arrested. I just want them to understand what they did. She nodded and said sometimes the only way people understand is when they face consequences. I asked what kind of consequences, and she said you could file a police report, pursue charges, or you could handle it privately. Set boundaries, make it clear this behavior won't be tolerated. I said I don't want to see them right now. I don't want them in my life, she said. That's a boundary, and it's a valid one. I was discharged 2 weeks after the surgery. I went home to my apartment, the one my family had broken into while I was dying, and I saw it differently now. I saw the jewelry box on my dresser empty because they'd taken everything. I saw the spare key hook by the door, and I thought about Emma using that key, the one I gave her for emergencies, using it to rob me. I changed the locks that same day, called a locksmith, paid extra for same-day service, and when it was done, I texted my mom and Emma, the locks are changed, don't come by. My mom called immediately. Olivia, please, we need to talk. I said, I'm not ready, she said. When will you be ready? I said, I don't know, maybe never. She started crying again, and I said, I have to go. I hung up and I sat on my couch in my apartment, and I felt safe for the first time since the surgery, not because of the new locks, but because I'd finally set a boundary. I'd finally said, no, you don't get to hurt me, and then act like I'm the problem for being hurt. 3 months have passed since the surgery. I'm fully recovered physically. The scar is healing. The pain is gone. I'm back at work, back to my life, but everything is different. My family keeps trying. My mom sends letters Emma shows up at my office. My aunt posts on social media about how families should forgive each other, hinting that I'm being cruel. I don't respond to any of it because here's what they don't understand. It's not about the jewelry. It was never about the jewelry. It's about what the jewelry represented. I was on an operating table. My heart stopped beating. For 4 minutes and 12 seconds, I was as close to dead as you can get without being gone forever. And in those 4 minutes, while doctors were fighting to save my life, my family was in a waiting room dividing up my things. They didn't wait for a funeral. They didn't wait for a death certificate. They didn't even wait for me to be officially gone. They just decided I was dead enough and started taking. Rachel asked me once if I'll ever forgive them. I said, I don't know. Forgiveness feels like saying what you did was okay, and it's not okay. You don't get to steal from someone and then cry when they're mad about it, she said, but they're your family. I said, family is supposed to protect you, not rob you. I sold most of the jewelry. I couldn't look at it anymore. Couldn't wear it without remembering I kept 2 things. My dad's necklace, because he's gone, and it's all I have left of him, and a ring I bought myself after I recovered, a simple silver band with an engraving on the inside, Survivor. I wear it every day, and when people ask about it, I tell them the whole story. I died for 4 minutes on an operating table. My family went to my apartment while I was dying, took my jewelry, brought it back to the hospital, and divided it up in the waiting room. I have it on video. Some people don't believe me. Some say I'm exaggerating, but I show them the security footage, the timestamp, the jewelry on the table, and they go quiet because there's no defending it. There's no way to spin stealing from someone while they're literally dying as anything other than what it is. Greed. My family thought I was gone, and instead of grieving, they started claiming what they could before anyone else did. And when I survived, when I came back and caught them, they didn't apologize for what they did. They apologized for getting caught. So tell me, if you died on an operating table and your family spent those minutes stealing your jewelry, would you forgive them? Would you let them back into your life, or would you do what I did, walk away, change the locks, and build a new life with people who actually value you? Because I chose myself, and I don't regret it, not for a second. I died for 4 minutes, and when I came back stronger, smarter, and unwilling to let anyone treat me like I'm already gone ever again.